ready to go here, Dan.
All right, Bob, I'm going to turn it over to you now.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. We're going to wait a few minutes here, let folks join us here tonight, but thank you for hopping on Zoom on this nice evening. More from us in a little while. I see a number of our committee members have joined us. So Bill, Bridget, Mary Jo, good for you to see me tonight, even though I can't see you. We'll get started here in another minute or two. Folks are joining us. I see Alan joined us as well. Hello, Alan. How are you? Someone. Yes, you are. All on mute, and I'll go through that here in a minute. So we'll go through the ground rules shortly, but I'll be sure to indicate how everyone can contribute to our discussion tonight, and kind of what our goals are for tonight as well. All right, well, it is 6:35, so we're going to go ahead and get started. We'll let folks straggle in here and, be able to get caught up to speed, I think, pretty quickly. My name is Bob Murphy, a community planner with Barton and LaJudas, and we've been retained along with our teammates from Page Group, Carrie McMurray and Nancy Patarini, to assist the Village of Illion with their comprehensive plan and local waterfront revitalization plan update. That's what we're here to talk about tonight. Get everyone up to speed on the benefits of a comprehensive plan, a local waterfront revitalization plan, and then begin to dive into existing conditions, because you have to know where you are now to know where you want to go. So today is all about knowing where we are now. So a little bit about tonight's agenda. We'll go through who's taking the lead on this project with the project team, both from the village and from the consultant's perspective, as well as from New York State Department of State. We'll also go through Comprehensive Planning 101 and what is an LWRP to help you understand what we hope to achieve with this project. We'll go through an inventory analysis section, which is a key component to any planning effort, and really kind of sets the baseline from which we can start planning for the future. We'll go over our ongoing community outreach efforts, including a community survey that was filled out online, as well as stakeholder outreach. Then we'll look into next steps and where we plan to take the project from here, what other opportunities there will be for public engagement as well. As you also see on the screen here, we have notes to pause for Q&A, and I'll get into that in a second. As I mentioned, these are our goals for tonight: to introduce the planning process, to go through the inventory analysis that includes demographics and mapping, as well as to get your feedback. So you did notice that you were muted when you entered the chat. It'll remain that way until the end of the presentation. So in the meantime, we encourage you and everyone on the call to please add your questions in the Q&A box that you see enabled in the Zoom platform. We'll be able to respond to those at certain times throughout the evening's presentation. At the end, we will enable live vocal Q&As. Allow you to, everyone who wishes to speak. We'll also enable the chat function at the end for you to leave your comments if you don't want to speak verbally on the process, on any comments or questions you might have from the presentation tonight. We'll also have poll questions that will be led by Carrie and Nancy. That'll start to point us toward the vision for the community going forward. And also to note, and you can tell your friends and colleagues who may not be able to join us tonight, that it will be recorded. The link will be posted on the project website, illioncomplan.com, as well as on the Village Facebook page at a future date. We'll also have a transcript available for those who are hearing impaired to be able to see what we're digging into. So introductions. We've got our local waterfront revitalization comprehensive planning committee from the Village of Illion listed on the screen before you with Ron Schoonmaker, Mary Jo Thompson, Alan Robinson, Bill Lennox, Pat Bryan, Bob McDowell, Bridget McKinley, Corey Albrecht, Bob Fletcher, Dick Keeler, and Liz Hoffman. Many of you I know are on the call tonight. So, as I mentioned a second ago with opening it up for public feedback at the end, if anyone on the committee wishes to add something at the end, please raise your hand using the hand raise function at the end, and we'll allow you to speak as well. So one thing to note as well is that the committee here that you see before you is really the lens through which this project is guided. Carrie, Nancy, and I, lend our expertise and knowledge of the process, but we'll never know the community as well as those who live there. This committee represents you all on the call on a day-to-day basis, but opportunities like tonight offer a chance for the public as a whole to weigh in on how we're doing, where we're going. So that's kind of the role of the committee in this process. The consultant team that you see before you on the screen, as I said, is really to offer our expertise in planning, in public outreach, to make sure that we do explore every avenue to get the best and most accessible public feedback that we can. Obviously, tonight we're doing a virtual meeting, which offers a suite of different opportunities, but also challenges to getting feedback. And as the pandemic moves along, we'll make every effort to get the most meaningful public outreach that we can, and that may include public meetings in person. That may mean a hybrid approach, but we'll explore that as we move along forward through the process. I already introduced Nancy and Carrie from Page Marketing Communications Group. With me in this process from Barton and LaJudas includes Chris Lawton, which many of you are familiar with, as well as John Steinmetz and Dan Sheridan, who is helping out tonight behind the scenes with the proceedings. Also from the Department of State, we have Maria Garcia and Jamie Reppert, and it's important to note that Department of State is helping fund this project through a local waterfront revitalization program grant. So we thank the Department of State for that and thank them for their contributions to the process thus far. So where are we at in the process? We began with a kickoff meeting last August, and today we're really concluding the end of the sort of existing conditions phase of the process. Any planning process really has three overall phases. It's where are we at now? What are the existing conditions? What are the existing issues? What are the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats of a community? The second phase would be where we want to go, and that is the vision that we'll set forth over the next couple of months, along with what are the goals that we see for our community in the future that will help us achieve that vision. And then lastly, we have how do we get there, which is a whole suite of recommended actions and policies that help us achieve each of those respective goals that then help achieve the vision. So we're concluding that first phase of an overall planning project right now. We'll have our next committee meeting in the month of May, and then gear up toward public workshops that look toward those future elements of the plan in late spring and early summer. Overall, we hope to have a draft plan completed in the fall, probably late fall, with approvals occurring hopefully next winter. So that's where we see the overall outlook of the project. And over the next couple slides, I'll brief you on the planning process as well as the LWRP process. And then I'll pause for questions. So if you have any questions, please feel free to enter them in the Q&A box, and we will address them when I get through these sections. So feel free to enter them on the fly, and we'll get to them at those stoppages. So Comprehensive Planning 101. What is a comprehensive plan? Why do we need it? Well, it's provided for in New York State law. And the key tenet of that law is that it helps promote the health, safety, and welfare of a community. It forms the basis for any land use regulations that may govern development or redevelopment in any community. It also provides background information for decision-making from village boards to planning and zoning boards to code enforcement. It also establishes a framework for future programs capital improvement planning, private and public sector investment going forward. So that's what a comprehensive plan does and why it's needed. There are many benefits of a comprehensive plan. I'll go through 6 of them here. And first of those, and not necessarily foremost, is that it represents a statement of local policies and a vision. Comprehensive plans allow a given community to speak to the development community, the business community, other municipalities, other funding sources about what the goals are, what the direction needs to be. This also is a way for the community to speak to different regimes of government. A lot of times the winds change when a new regime takes over a unit of government, but the comprehensive plan allows for a consistent message of what the direction the people in the community want to see it go. As I mentioned earlier, it provides direction for planning and zoning board members. A lot of times, what is a question may come before a planning or zoning board that doesn't necessarily fit within the confines of an existing responsibility or codified law. That's where the comprehensive plan can come into place. A decision can then be made by that board that is consistent with the comprehensive plan, which is in essence the will of the community as a whole. It strengthens the village's, in this case, legal positioning for those such decisions. Having an up-to-date current comprehensive plan is critical for standing up to those challenges in court for a community. The Department of State recommends updating a comprehensive plan every 5 years. Many communities struggle to meet that update requirement, but getting it as close to up to date as possible allows any decisions and then laws that are passed to stand up better in court. It serves to make the government more responsive and efficient. As we see tonight, this process begins with an understanding of where a community is today, and we need to ask you, the members of the public, to tell us what issues you see and what opportunities you see that we can maybe address in this plan. So in itself, a comprehensive plan is a way to be responsive to the community. It also increases the chances of funding. As we've said throughout these first several bullets, this is a statement of the will of the community, the direction they want to see it going. The last thing that a funding agency wants to see is a project that they funded meet local opposition. So if in a grant application, if you can point to a project being in your comprehensive plan, or the benefits of a project being in your comprehensive plan and embedded through the public, like we're doing tonight, that gives funding agencies kind of trust that a project is going to meet significant opposition. And lastly, it fosters appropriate development. Illion, like many upstate communities, are hungry for development, especially job-creating development. But what a comprehensive plan does is it allows you to take a look at your community, your existing land use regulations, your unique assets, in this case, the Mohawk River and Erie Canal, the Erie Canal Way Trail, the scenic kind of terrain changes around the central Mohawk Valley, and seek to attract development that takes advantage of those unique features, but doesn't detract from the reason we like the village so much. So it really helps you channel and foster appropriate development in that sense. So a comprehensive plan, what it is and what it is not. It is the primary document that serves the community vision. That's what you see at the top of your screen here now. It is also supplemented by small area plans, such as a downtown master plan. In many cases, in many ways, also like an LWRP, local waterfront revitalization plan, can be considered a small area plan. These are overall planning documents that serve to fortify that community vision that will be expressed in this plan over the next couple months. That there are other pieces of legislation and planning documents that also help fortify a comprehensive plan. Many, as you see on the screen here, such as zoning ordinances, building codes, as well as operational plans for transportation networks and capital improvement plans. All of these serve to fortify a comprehensive plan and help achieve that vision for the community. What a comprehensive plan is not, it's not an end, but a beginning of the process. This is an evolving effort and over many years. It's not a final product. As I mentioned, the Department of State recommends updating it once every 5 years. So what we decide in this plan should be up for review over the next 5 years to make sure it's still within the will of the community. And then as things are accomplished and implemented, what's next? And that's where it's really an evolving document. It's not permanent or rigid. It's also not a zoning or land use law in itself. However, a comprehensive plan provides the backing for any changes you make to zoning or land use law. Without a consistency with your comprehensive plan, any local land use laws could be vulnerable to challenges in court. So it's important to have that consistency throughout, as you see demonstrated by the double arrow in your graphic here. So what is an LWRP? It is slightly different from a comprehensive plan, especially since it does not include the entire village geographically. So our effort here with this project is to address both. But an LWRP is comprehensive in what it looks at, but geographically much more focused on your waterfront and downtown. This funding is provided by Department of State in an effort to help fortify riverfront communities as those uses associated with waterfronts changed from industrial, during the 20th century, to more of recreation, conservation, in some cases residential and commercial along waterfronts today. So that's what this funding is for. That's why Illion is eligible for funding, being on the Mohawk River and Erie Canal. It's also important to note that this isn't the first LWRP funded for the village of Illion. The village was part of a consortium in 2000 called the Central Mohawk Valley Alliance that produced an LWRP then, and some of those contributing communities were, along with the village of Illion, was the village of Mohawk, village of Frankfort, village of Middleville, as well as the town of German Flats. This is an update of that document, and this only will be pertinent to the village of Illion. So the village has decided to pursue this on their own. We have on the screen also, as I mentioned, it's a geographic cross section of the village, not necessarily the whole thing included in the LWRP boundary. And the reason for that is that being within an LWRP comes with its own set of consistency issues. Within an LWRP, yes, you are eligible for LWRP funding. That is a key carrot for a community to have participate in the LWRP plan. However, it does also come with local law consistency, another layer of government review, if you will. and that doesn't necessarily make sense throughout a whole village. So that's why we've set up the LWRP boundary the way we have it here. And I'll get into more what that means in a minute here. This is also important to note that this is consistent with the boundary as it was in 2000. And mostly it hugs the water courses of the village, the Steel Creek, Mohawk River front, the downtown area, as it is important to the waterfront. It also includes Russell Park. So that's why you see it does move away from the water a little bit to the southeast. So that's sort of the reasoning for it being established the way it is under this boundary system. So what is an LWRP? As I mentioned, it has to do with not only eligibility for funding, but also consistency among local, state, and federal law. The Mohawk River is a designated inland waterway. That's what makes the village eligible for this funding. So anywhere and any sort of projects, whether they be private or public, that occur within an LWRP area need to be consistent with local laws that are part of the LWRP program, as well as state law associated with designated inland waterways, and federal law as it relates to coastal waterways. That's important to note as well is that the state needs to be consistent with such laws both at the local level and state level. So a state agency can't come in and do something that's against the will of a local community as they've put in their LWRP. So it does give the local communities a bit more of a stick to make sure that any state or federal projects abide by their wishes for the community. So that's an important distinction, and the reason why we don't have the LWRP for the whole village. Just some of the areas of focus for an LWRP, as you can see, they overlap with what would be considered as part of a comprehensive plan. Things that help establish the vision and future of a community, and in this case, particularly related to waterfront and downtown development, such as community resilience in the face of climate change being along this water course, public access to those waterways, water quality issues, underutilized waterfront areas, as I mentioned. Many communities in upstate New York and throughout New York State really have had to deal with challenges associated with waterfront being for factories and industry, and now more for recreation and scenic viewshed, and for natural resource protection. So as I mentioned, any actions by federal and state agencies must be consistent with the LWRP. So that's where an LWRP offers the local community, some strength in dealing with state and federal decisions. Before I wrap up this kind of background about what a comprehensive plan and LWRP are, I wanted to offer some brief insight into the implications of each on two parcels and sites that I'm sure you all are very familiar with and that have been frequent discussions at our committee meetings. And one is the dual fold site and how that site is in a state of flux and hopefully trending in the right direction. I see David Murray's on the call here today, and he did share with me a video clip of John Pisak from Herkimer County IDA and the future of the dual fold site. But as that site looks for funding to finish cleanup efforts, what is the future of that site? What does the community want to see there? In many cases, the community can help support what goes on there, as well as just fortify what their investments are in the village. So, what is the future of that site? And this plan, both the LWRP and comprehensive plan, can offer an avenue for those opinions to be expressed. And a sort of legally binding carrot to communicate with potential developers for that site. We also all know of the Remington site, and what the future of that large area, which makes up a good section of downtown, what the future of that is. The fact is, going forward, whoever operates that site is going to need permits for any sorts of changes. If that involves more industrial development or less, subdivision, repurposing, any sort of future. And that's not to say that we know what's going on there, and I don't want to get fixated on it for the sake of tonight, but a comprehensive plan can help steer what goes there and what sorts of benefits the public wants to see out of any development at that site, from making downtown more walkable, to offering more housing downtown, to maintaining the unique community character of Illion with whatever future development happens there. So, as we move forward in this process over the next several months, keep that in mind, that this is an opportunity to weigh in on the future of that site from the community's perspective. So now that I've spoke for a good 25 minutes about just planning in general, I need a drink of water, but I also would like to hear what you guys have to say, what sort of questions you might have over that process, before we move on. So I'll go check out the Q&A here. So we do have one question from Bill, who asks, has the village board put together a planning board and zoning board as we recommended? And I don't have the answer to that, unfortunately, Bill. But that's a good thing to mention, I guess, in that this sort of plan can recommend sort of organizational changes, such as separating the planning and zoning board, putting them together, even creation of other boards such as architectural review boards or waterfront specific review boards. Any other questions before we move along? Oh, well, thank you, Carrie. Again, we're all trying to adapt to the new times, but I did neglect to move the Q&A box, so it was blocking the screen. I apologize for that. Any other questions? Oh, David, we're going to open it up for speaking questions at the end. So if you have any questions in the meantime, type them into the Q&A box. We'll come back around to opening it up for verbal Q&A at the end. But I see your hand up. Did you have something that you wanted to ask right now? If not, we can come back to it as we move on to the next stoppage. So, inventory analysis. Much of this will not be new to you all. I mean, you live in the community and experience it every day. Some of it may be surprising to you. So, take what I'm about to run through, with an open mind. And if something surprises you, please feel free to ask about it. I want to hear what's surprising, and so we can dig into that deeper about why it might be surprising to you. So the inventory analysis really will go through a series of demographics and changes to those demographics over the last 10 years, as well as more physical inventory, such as slopes, zoning and land use patterns, as well as traffic volume, among other things. And this is an important piece of both the comprehensive plan and an LWRP, again, to know where we are today, so we can measure where we go in the future. So population change, this isn't going to be surprising to anybody, is that population has declined since 1980. Since 1990, 12% decrease, which is larger than the Herkimer County number, as well as the Utica-Rome metro area. And for those of you who may not know, the Utica-Rome metro area is, in fact, Oneida County and Herkimer County. So on these sets of graphics, we have demographics about age and age change. First to note is that the largest cohorts in the village continue to be younger. The 0 to 19 age cohort, the 20 to 30 age cohort, and the 35 to 54 age cohort. This results in a lower median age in the village at 39.4 than the county and metro area overall. Now, a lot of this has to do with the rental properties available in the village that aren't available to the outer towns in Herkimer County and in the metro area. But something to note that it has a higher percentage of young people than other areas. But that is changing a bit, as you see in the change in age distribution graphic between 2010 and 2018, with that 0 to 19 age cohort declining by 3% over that 8-year period, while it's increasing, albeit slightly, in the county and metro areas, just by 1%. There's also declines, pretty steep declines, in the 35 to 54 age demographic, and inclines in the 55 to 74, the baby boomer age demographic. And this mirrors trends across the country, really. Unemployment rate remains high in the village compared to the county and metro area, and poverty rate has grown with our most recent data on the bottom there, indicating a 20.1% poverty rate. So a lot of people in need living in the village. This also allows the village to really put a foot forward in addressing this need with grant funding. And again, this data is from 2018. So we talk about jobs being provided within the village at over 2,500 jobs. Only a fifth of those are held by village residents, with 80% coming in from outside the village. There are over 3,000 workers who live in the village and work elsewhere. I like this graphic to really show you the nature of employment in the village, who's staying here to work, who's coming in here to work, who's leaving here to work elsewhere. Another key factor, and this was actually also mentioned, I know, on that podcast that Dave, you sent me earlier, is housing and the age of housing in the village of Illion. It is quite old, and this isn't surprising. A lot of the housing that was built to house the workers at Remington is still in existence. And as you see by the numbers on the upper chart, over 68% of the housing was built before 1950. And that is quite old. And that really just means that new housing hasn't been built within the village in large numbers as compared to the county and metro area overall. And this age has contributed to the lower median home value in 2018 in the village, just under 80,000 compared to 97 at the county level and 117 at the metro level. We mentioned the LWRP boundary earlier, and that'll be the focus for that LWRP program, but not for the comp plan overall. But as part of both plans, we'll be looking into what we will have described rather the following topics. Number one being the regional setting, history and community characteristics, including the village's past and recent past. You know, it's not the job of a comprehensive plan to recreate the past, but it is insightful to know where the village has come from, but also see where it's trending toward. What is the Mohawk Valley culture of today? We'll also talk about that in this section. We'll also break down land use distinctions within the village. The yellow areas you see here, and on most land use maps, are residential, single family, in fact, as commercial, as multifamily are defined by the property assessor, the county property assessor, as commercial. Those are the reddish parcels that you see more commonly in the downtown area. You see Russell Park, the large parks and conservation area to the southeast. Gray areas are actually vacant parcels, and this is according to, again, the county property assessor's assessment. As you see a lot of those near the river, where floodplains can be an issue, and we'll show more about that in a little while. Zoning. Again, here, the yellow area is residential, and all the R's that you see. The teal area is R10. And I won't break down every zoning distinction, but you see there's sort of a hodgepodge, with the exception of downtown, where it's pretty uniformly of the B1, the business 1 distinction, which is the downtown business area. You also see the industrial sites in this sort of magenta purple, where Remington is the dual fold site, and areas to the east. We'll also break down abandoned, vacant, and underutilized sites. This is just kind of a black and white version, so you can easily see the distinction between what's considered vacant and what's not. Again, a large acreage of vacant properties along the waterfront. And that's good in a sense that this LWRP funding can help address those vacancies, whether they mean being developed, preserved to help deal with riverfront flooding, or more of a recreational nature. Transportation will also be considered. As you see on the map here, we have average annual daily traffic volumes. You'll see the biggest numbers up on 5S, with 13,000, almost over 13,000 heading toward Utica. Then you see the number drop off as you move away from the regional employment center at under 12,000. Within the village itself, you'll see pretty high volume numbers coming off of 5S, past Remington, up to the school campus. And then once you get past the school campus, those numbers drop off. So this is insightful to see who's driving by where and what opportunities there are to help with traffic congestion, moving, even local mobility with walkability, and for attracting potential customers. So we'll be describing the transportation setting in the village as well. Land ownership. This breaks down what is privately owned and what is publicly owned. Obviously, publicly owned parcels can be more readily, addressed with public investment. Privately held parcels, it's still in private ownership. It can be to the will of the the private landowner what happens there, but we want to also be able to present desirable community alternatives to what they have in their plans for the future. So having this breakdown is useful to be able to point to areas where maybe combining parcels is possible, or where there's a concentration of publicly owned parcels, which can be changed more readily. We also mentioned floodplains earlier. Approximately half of the LWRP area and about a third of the village is within a 100-year floodplain, both along the Steel Creek and along the Mohawk River. This has obvious implications for the costs of development along the river, and many of the reasons why some of these parcels are considered vacant today. It doesn't preclude development. It makes development more expensive, and it also makes the impacts of development felt more widely in those areas. So again, how we on the project team, the committee, consider development in the floodplain with what you all in the public tell us is going to be important to where we steer development going forward, and how to preserve and take advantage of that waterfront nature that Illion has without being to the detriment of the community. It's a delicate balance. Also mirroring the floodplain map that you just saw is the topography. As you can see, a lot of low-lying areas closer to the river. That's where the floodplain is. Elevated areas up as you get up into Russell Park. There was mention in previous plans about potentially using this elevation change as a sort of amphitheater setting to look out over the valley from Russell Park, and that's what that Sugar Bowl reference is. And we'll want to lay all this, this information out in the inventory analysis section to better inform any of those development scenarios. You also see some steep terrain changes, and that can also be prohibitive to development, rising up from behind Remington, going up the hill and into the western part of the village as well. As many of you know, the water and sewer infrastructure are in the process of being updated throughout the village. As the number one concern, I know, of many village residents is the quality of the water, and that is being addressed. And that's kind of where the comprehensive plan and LWRP projects will hopefully pick up, where the infrastructure leaves off, sets a good set of bones, if you will, for the development of the village. The comprehensive plan can really kind of fill out the rest of that picture and provide the direction for taking advantage of the new infrastructure. So we'll have this fully vetted out in the inventory analysis section to build off. Natural resources, as I've mentioned throughout, the Mohawk River is the reason why the village is eligible, and we want to make sure that that's a key focus of development in the village going forward. Not only for getting funding, as we've mentioned, the LWRP will fund projects that have to do with waterfront development, but also because it is a unique attribute to the village and could be a way that elevates Illion to the top of someone's investment list, to the top of someone's list to where they want to move, is if they can take advantage of this waterfront. It also will allow existing residents to make the most of where they live today. A lot of times in planning projects, we get caught up in attracting different people and what a plan means to people from outside of a community, when it's really for the people in the community and to help them better their lives. And so taking care of natural resources within Illion is going to be critical to that effort. A key component to that, of course, is public access and recreation. We'll look at not only what we have in an inventory sense, but also what opportunities there are to expand that. And that's kind of a transition to where we go from existing conditions analysis to possibly what the vision of the waterfront is, and how do we achieve that vision? How do we make that attainable? And those items might include more opportunities for fishing and kayaking. Perhaps we have the Erie Canalway Trail running near the waterfront. What about along the Steel Creek? Is there opportunities to take people back into the community toward downtown, or from the neighborhoods in Illion out to the waterfront via an off-road trail? These are opportunities that we'll want to know the baseline of what sorts of public access do we have now, and how do we improve it. We'll also have a list of community assets, many of which I've already mentioned, but just a map to really showcase what attributes can be focused on to improve the attractiveness and retention of residents of Illion going forward. So this is kind of the highlights piece of the inventory analysis. So now that I've droned on, pardon me, about the inventory analysis, which is, like I said, a key piece of an LWRP and a comprehensive plan, I did want to pause to see if there were any other questions relating to the demographics, anything that was surprising to you about the demographics or the physical inventory mapping that I just went through. While you're thinking of potential questions, I will mention that there will be much more significant narrative in the report than what you see on a slideshow. But I do think the graphics point to what will be discussed in that narrative, and what sets the baseline for where Illion is at today before we start looking ahead to tomorrow. Any other questions? Well, if something comes to mind, please, again, feel free to enter them into the chat as we go. We're going to move into our community outreach segment of the plan right now, of the presentation right now, and there'll be an opportunity for some polling responses here for you all as we get into that as well. So if any questions come up, please enter them into the Q&A box. And again, we'll open it up for more free-form speaking questions at the end of tonight's presentation. So, as many of you know, we've been engaging you all and stakeholder groups in community outreach efforts really since the beginning of 2021. And while we've engaged in that online survey that over 360 of you kindly filled out for us, that's a great turnout and provides us with really statistically relevant information. We're still collecting that information. So we want, including tonight's exercise we'll do in a minute. We've also done stakeholder outreach, which is a little bit more targeted than the overall community preference survey that you might have all seen. We developed a list of contacts in housing and economic development, in community groups, and so on, and sent them a list of questions specifically targeted to their category to get their feedback on those issues. And we're still in the process of collecting that as well. And we'll have the summary of not only the stakeholders, but also the community survey feedback available on the website shortly. And we want to contribute to that feedback here in a series of polling questions that Carrie and Nancy, our colleagues with the Page Marketing Group, will lead us through. So with that said, I'll turn it over to Carrie.
Thank you, Bob. We've done, like Bob said, we did a community survey. We launched it in January when we had over 360 responses. And what you're going to have an opportunity to do tonight is answer those same questions. There's 6 of them, and they're in a variety of topics, those being housing, the marina, of course, right? Neighborhoods, parks, quality of life, and then what we're calling destination, which is really tourism. So Dan, our guru behind the scenes, is going to put up a polling question. I'll read it out loud and your choices. And we're going to ask for each question that that everybody that's participating tonight select their top 3. And what we mean by top 3 is of the 4 or sometimes 6 or 7 choices, what do you feel are the most important 3 or the most relevant 3 to Illion? And then once we have a chance to see, everybody fill it out, then you'll be able to see the results live tonight, and then we'll take those with us and we'll aggregate that with the data that we've already compiled from the original survey. And you'll see the complete survey findings as well as what Bob mentioned with the stakeholder feedback. All of that will be available on the project website. So with that, Dan, I'm going to ask you to throw up our first question there, if you would. So, and excuse me, I don't have my reading glasses on, so I'm going to lean into my screen a little, probably too close. The first one is about housing. So when you think about the Village of Illion's housing options, which of the following do you believe will be the most important to its future? And again, we're asking you to select 3, okay? Revitalizing existing properties is 1. More housing options, and what we mean by that is townhomes, apartments. It's another choice. New single-family housing development, 3rd choice. Affordable housing options, or broader price range. So we'll give you a couple of moments, a minute or 2 here to select your top 3, and go ahead when you're ready.
I'd just like to add as well, Carrie, any committee members that are on the call, feel free to participate in these questions. We wanted to hear get your feedback on this as well. So if you have any thoughts, please respond to the polling.
Yes, thanks, Bob. So it's just unmuted, by the way.
So we have about a little over 50% of the results in at this point. I'm going to give it a couple more minutes, seconds or so, and just see if any more of those results trickle in, and then I will show the results of the survey. If there's anyone having any trouble at all with the survey, just raise your hand or drop a question in and maybe we can help you from there. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and share I'm gonna end the poll and share our results here.
That's great, thank you. So our top three there, revitalizing existing properties, more housing options, new single family housing, and then the fourth, broader price range, followed by affordable housing. And Nancy and I will note that that is trending just like the survey results that we have to date. Thanks, Dan. You can close that one out and put up the next one. This is waterfront. So when you think about the village of Illion's Marina, which of the following do you believe will be most effective for increasing use among residents and visitors, as well as important to its future? And again, we're going to ask you to pick three. Improved marina amenities, and what we mean by that is food and recreation options, four-season activities, greater accessibility for more people of all ages, expanded dock to accommodate more types of boats, and then finally RV park improvements. And we'll give you all a few minutes to select three of those as well.
Alright, looks like we've gotten around the same amount of engagement, so I'm going to go ahead and end the polling now, and then I will share those results as well.
Super, thanks. Improved marina amenities, 75%. Four-season activities, also 75. Interesting. Expanded dock to accommodate more types of boats, 50. RV park improvements, 50. And then greater accessibility for people of all ages. Relatively following the same trend with a little variation towards the last or the third option, but pretty much in line with the survey. Thanks, Dan. You can throw up neighborhoods now. All right, so when you think about the village of Illion's neighborhoods, which of the following do you believe are most important to encourage current residents to stay and to also attract new residents and businesses? And again, we're going to ask you for three. Quality of our school system, affordability of our municipal resources, strong public safety, quality of our workforce, access to regional transportation systems. So go ahead and pick your three, and then when we've got everybody in, Dan will show us all results.
While you all are thinking about this question on neighborhoods, I just wanted to add one note that if you are tuning into this on another day that's not live, please consider the questions that we're posing, and please reach out and offer any feedback on these questions that you have to us. I'll have my contact information up at the end of this, as well as on our project website, illioncompplan.com. That's with two P's. So I just wanted to offer that to folks watching this on the recording.
Okay, I'm showing the similar amount of responses we've been getting, so I'm going to go ahead and end this poll and share the results.
Great. Quality of school system, affordability of our municipal resources, and strong public safety, very much in line with the survey. Very strong responses in the public survey as well as here. So thank you for that. The next one is parks. When you think about the Village of Illion's parks, which of the following do you believe will be most important to the Village of Illion's future? And again, we're asking for 3. Increase recreational opportunities at Russell Park. Increase recreational opportunities at other neighborhood green spaces and parks. Increase amenities, other neighborhood green spaces and parks. For example, what we mean by that is public restrooms. Make it easier and more pleasant to access village parks. Excuse me, too much coffee. So if you go ahead and take your top 3 here, and then when Dan sees everybody in, he'll put up the results for us.
Alright, just waiting on a couple more to trickle in here, and I'll give it about 30 more seconds. Okay, last call for anyone who wanted to get one more vote in. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and end it now and share the results.
So again, this is also in line, Russell Park and other parks at the top. Followed closely actually by amenities, which we saw in the public survey as well. And by the way, we're asking for the top 3. It doesn't mean that any of these go away. They certainly will be considered and in some cases addressed. It just helps the committee prioritize focus areas. So we thank you. And now we've got quality of life. So when you think about quality of life for the Village of Illion, which of the following do you believe are the most important to encourage current residents to stay and then attract new residents and businesses? And again, we're looking for 3. Recreational facilities, proximity to medical, educational, and retail services, parks, youth facilities and programs, for example, Girl Scouts camp, Illion historical legacy and significance, weather, and what we mean by that, although we're getting a nor'easter on Wednesday, less to worry about natural disasters given where we are in proximity to other parts of the country. And then if you scroll, that last one, social organizations, and for example, they are Elks Club. So if you would pick your 3 there, please, and then when Dan sees everybody in, he'll put up the results for us.
All right, waiting on a couple more. I'll give it about 30 more seconds and then I'll send it. All right, I'm going to go ahead and close it now.
So our top three here are recreational facilities, proximity to medical, educational, and then parks. And the rest of them are fairly far behind the top three, so to speak, which again is something that we saw in the public survey as well. So our last one here is destination, and it really has to do with tourism. We'll put that one up. So when you think about the village of Illion as a destination people want to visit, which of the following do you believe will be most important to the village of Illion's future? And again, here we're asking for your top three. More business and retail activity in the village center, more amenities that attract young professionals, physical improvements to Illion's multiple entrances to make positive first impression, more activities for children, more community-sponsored events and programming, more attractions that promote Illion's history, easier access to the village center. And we'll give you a few minutes to answer this final question, and then we'll show the results.
All right, I think we might be made. Oh, there it comes in there. So I will end the polling now and go ahead and share the results.
Great, thank you. So here we've got more amenities that attract young professionals and more activities for children popping to the top, followed closely by physical improvements, more business, and attractions. And actually this is very similar to what we saw as well. A little flip in the one or in the two and the three, but very closely aligned. So thank you, everybody. We appreciate your feedback. I'm going to turn it back over to Bob now, and he's going to talk a little bit about next steps and then open it up for questions.
Thanks, Carrie, and thanks everybody for participating. Again, if you're joining us on the recording or on YouTube, please reach out with your responses to what you saw on the polling there. As we again, we're looking to close out our existing conditions. Where are we at now? Phase of the plan. And as part of that, as I mentioned, we're also engaged with a number of stakeholders in the community. Thus far, we've heard from a couple members of each group. These include in housing, the Illion Housing Authority, as well as the Mohawk Valley Community Action Agency. With education, we've heard from Herkimer BOCES, as well as the Central Valley Central School District, thanks in large part to our committee member, Dick Keeler. Within community groups and resources, we've heard from Woolner Family Eye Care, as well as Herkimer County Historical Society, and in business and development, we've heard from the aforementioned John Piesick with the Herkimer County IDA, and as well as the Illion True Value Hardware. So if anyone on the call or anyone watching this on the recording later has other connections within those sort of category areas of stakeholders, please send us their emails. and encourage them to reach out to us. We'd love to hear from more folks in housing, education, community groups and resources, as well as the business community. So next steps. From here on out, over the next couple of weeks, the project team will be completing what we've gone through tonight, which is the inventory analysis, as well as the introduction to both the plan and the methodology behind both plans. And as part of that methodology will be the community participation plan, our outreach focus areas going forward. We'll summarize tonight's meeting, as well as put out the community outreach summary that I mentioned earlier. We'll wrap up our outreach efforts with the stakeholders, and we'll discuss with the committee how what we've heard from tonight and in the coming weeks affects what we see as the development priorities going forward. Our next committee meeting, as I mentioned, is in early May, and we'll begin to focus on projects and policies that support the future vision. And for you all, we'll be looking to get back in touch with you later in the spring. Again, looking more toward the future with draft recommended policies and projects, and getting your feedback on what our ideas are to that effect. In the meantime, please stay tuned to the project website. I've got it posted here, www.illioncompplan.com. And please feel free to reach out to me with my obnoxiously long email address, rmurphy@bartonandlajudas.com. So with that said, we'll turn it over to questions that you all might have on anything we've discussed tonight. And you can feel free to add it into the Q&A box or raise your hand. And I see that Dave Murray, you have your hand up, so I'm going to unmute you, and feel free to offer any comment or question. We'll see what we can do to answer it. Can you hear me, Dave? Can you hear me, Dave?
I think we may have lost him. He is no longer listed as an attendee. So
I promoted him to panelist to
Gotcha.
activate his mic. Well, David, if you can hear me, I'm gonna put you back to attendee. But if you have a question, let us know in the Q&A box, and we'll unmute you. Anybody else in attendance have any questions or comments? If so, use the raise hand function or type a question in the Q&A box, and we can activate you. Going once, going twice. So I think, since there appears to be no questions, we'll wrap up our proceedings here tonight. Again, anyone watching this later, please reach out with questions. Folks on the call, be sure to let folks know that the recording will be available We'll have it posted on illioncomplan.com with links on the village Facebook page as well, and feel free to share that so we can spread the word about this project, what we hope are benefits of this project, and where we're at with this sort of existing conditions station where we're at now. Looking ahead, as I mentioned, we'll be moving into the vision and recommended actions and policies over the next couple of months, and I think we'll definitely get a lot more feedback on where the rubber meets the road with different actions and policies presented. So let people know about the project, spread the word, and encourage participation where you can. Also, if you have any suggestions for stakeholder outreach, please let us know, and we'll reach out to them. So that said, I'll look to wrap things up here, and it's a good suggestion, Carrie. I'll follow up with you, David, offline on what you may have wanted to ask. But I'll wrap things up for tonight. So thanks for joining us, and stay tuned for more updates for the Illion Comprehensive Plan and Local Waterfront Revitalization Plan update process.